Back in the 60s, you stood a better chance of surviving a gunshot wound in Vietnam than you did a car accident in the city of Pittsburgh.
There weren't ambulances as we think about them today. People called the police, and hopefully the police would actually come and pick them up.
Relations between the police and the black community were oppressive.
Wild to think that there are these parts of history in America that you're still completely unaware of, and to get the opportunity to learn about them, it doesn't matter how old you are, you just feel like a student again and get to absorb like a sponge. And a documentary like this is a wonderful way to do that, because we have firsthand accounts here, doubled and supported by these stunning pictures that really bring you back to that time when we see discrimination against the wounded, against the hurt, against the very people who need help. But we saw a community rally and not take this lying down, but create something that had a long-lasting impact that affects all of us today in our safety and our healthcare.
Fascinating subject matter. The idea of, EMS services starting with us, I never even knew that. And, I've been doing Black History programs since I was a kid. So many Black History programs at church, at school, growing up. And we never even heard about this. I done seen every, all of the whole Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, all of them, all like the whole pantheon of Black historical dramas, Black historical documentaries, all of that. I never even heard about this. So I think that speaks to that this is a good, fascinating subject matter. And I think y'all explored it really well and broke it down and told the whole story. You know what I'm saying? And I think this could be a blueprint for more media. I would watch a show about these guys, like the Tuskegee Airmen type. Like they could have the same place in Black history lore as the Tuskegee Airmen, I think, where it's like honored heroes, should be talked about.
This film was sensational. I mean, I loved what the filmmakers did with this and how creatively they were using past footage. And it's just so strange to think that back in the 60s, there were no ambulances at all. So this was also very, very educational too. And it was heart-wrenching as well, because the discrimination is just disgusting. But I loved getting to learn about Amira's story and how she became deputy chief. So I was glad to see that things were changing slowly, but they're changing. I think the filmmakers did a great job adding text boxes to give you further information. The interviews in this were great. The cinematography was amazing. And it's also just amazing what Freedom House did for everybody. Not just the people who they employed that other people thought that they were unemployable, but how many lives they saved.
I loved hearing from all of the former Freedom House ambulance EMTs, some of the first EMTs in our country, in our world. Was amazing that we can still talk to them today. Like, that's how new our ambulance systems are. Just hearing how they came from being considered unemployable to being EMTs and saving lives was so cool. Also just devastating and frustrating and, very anger-inducing to hear about what happened to the Freedom House ambulance. Just how it was basically stolen from them and given to the white communities and basically putting them back to where they started. Yeah. It was definitely a different time and place, but just astounding to me to hear that, and very frustrating and heartbreaking, really, to see their life-saving medical care and services be stripped from them like that. And, the purpose that these men and women had being stripped from them and them getting kicked out of the program, or not kicked, but systematically eliminated, basically. But yeah, I loved hearing this story. I will definitely be researching more about this. It's so, so interesting and something that I think everyone should learn.
I absolutely loved this. I thought it was really well researched, really, really well executed. I loved learning about the history of it. It's one of those things I think in modern times we all grew up knowing like 911 means police, fire, ambulance. Like that was just a kind of given part of society. And so learning the history of it, of what was the first ambulances, how they started, where they came from, what the circumstances were, how they developed, is really, really interesting, really, really fascinating. Something is just one of those kind of out of sight, out of mind. I never really thought about how they came to be, how emergency medicine branched outside of a hospital into EMT and paramedics. So I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was, like I said, really informative, really educational, but really, really interesting. It wasn't, one dimensional. They kept the history, like, they told the history in a really interesting way. And then with all of the interviews that they were able to do, just really enhanced the learning experience.
Great eye-opening story detailing the struggles of people of color back in the days and how their lives were cut short because of the color of their skin, and how certain forms of help like medical services wouldn't attend to their needs. And throughout the story we get to witness the struggles of the people and how they were refused help and deemed worthless. Yet by the end, we get to see a slight sense of hope and a light with these people as they start to make a name for themselves by helping out their families by the end.